That's a lot of evil.
Yeah.
A friend of ours that fights in this space 3, 4 weeks ago was telling us a 13-year-old girl was being raped while someone would stand there and read the Bible to her. And then they would rotate and somebody else would come in, read the Bible while she would be going through this horrible evil. It was believed that they were doing this so that the worst moment of her life would be associated with God's word. If you want to read something.
This forum is entitled Forced and has 50 members/contributors. The specific forum has been active for nearly 2 years. Offender 1, what are you into? Offender 2, but anything goes. Offender 3, I'm 60 and a very violent man. No isn't an option. Offender 4, hello all. How are my fellow friends today? Offender 2, I have 20 TB
Terabytes.
Oh my gosh, of video new for 2023 vids available. This is what we're facing.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that are hurtful and disturbing about it. One of the things that we're seeing grow bit by bit is offenders that are saying instead of finding their next victim, some of them are saying, let's just grow our next victim.
And then he goes on to say, just for context, that he pulls out a map and he shows Sean Ryan this map across the United States just in the last 30 days of offenders' IP addresses that are showing to have passed along child pictures or videos or acts of things that are happening to kids. And I mean, the map is just lit up, literally just lit up all across the United States. And he says, that's just the last 30 days. I believe it was over 111,000 hits of content that was pushed out to different people or uploaded or looked at by these various IP addresses.
I can only imagine how this mentally messes you up, especially if you're working in the field
Yeah.
and if you're either help rescuing kids from being trafficked, going in and catching them, having to look at countless videos to find out where these people are located at, where these children are located at, what it could do to you mentally. Diving into it myself, just so I know what I'm talking about when I come
Right.
on. And this is a real concern. I've always been passionate about children and being an advocate on speaking for children. And especially again, the border, over 500,000, it's way more than 500,000 kids.
Absolutely.
But just in general, just so even what's going on with the wars, there's going to be missing children, any type of disaster, children goes missing. But the rabbit hole that I went down to truly figure out everything on how is this possible, who's in charge of this, down to who's involved in it, who runs it. It's a business. It's an organization. It's a $1 trillion industry. And it had messed me up for 3 days. To come back to reality for my kids, to come back in reality, to my own babies, because then I'm looking at them, I'm feeling guilty that, here are these kids that are going through this. What about this kid? What about that kid? And just feeling guilty that, like, not that our kids are safe, but just the blessing and the covering that they have over them.
Yeah.
And this is true. It's real. It's out there. And I know people don't want to get there on how dark it is because it messes you up mentally.
Of course.
It does. But I had to remove myself to say, okay, I have to get back to reality, Katrina. I even questioned God. Like, God, this doesn't make sense, because if your power is, just that incredible, if your spirit's that divine, then why do children, and I get it, it's sin, it's sin. I get that. I had conversations about that, but it's hard for me to, and maybe we can have this conversation when people say, well, hey, that's sin, but that's still God's children. It's still kids. I don't believe kids should have to go through this. No kids should ever go through this.
Absolutely.
And you're only thinking in a moment of like this, God, where are you? Like, at any moment, you can do something. And it's just, it's a dark hole that, I get it, people don't want to go through. And when you do, it's undone.
It's hard to get out of it. And I think it gives rise, or it allows the connections in your mind as somebody who is investigative to look at this and see the connections. That's why you understand now why they're saying that USAID and these government agencies, including the DHHS, was involved as the pinnacle, right? The tip of the spear, or so to speak, with who was heading up all this trafficking. And then it makes you think about this recent interview that Tucker had talking about these subterranean locations underneath the earth, these DUMBs, these deep underground military bases. Is this a trafficking system? Is this a network to be able to move children, people? Where are all these people going? You're telling me that we're not able to account for these people and find out where they really are? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So I think when you look at it, yes, it's sick. It saddens you. It breaks your heart. It destroys you on the inside, because you can only imagine what other parents who have children who have gone missing are going through. These migrant kids who have already been detached from their families as it is and been pushed up to the border, not for freedom, not for the American dream, but for the fact that these people are utilizing them as a profit tool, and they're a business for them. So they're coming up here to do these things. And you just think about all that landscape, and it's just extremely crazy. So I think about people like Tom Homan, and I've referenced this before. You and I have talked about this, but Tom Homan, I remember at America Fest, before Trump got into office, he said, people ask me all the time, well, why are you so interested? Why are you so invested into this, and talking about migrant children and finding them? And he said, it's the fact that the people who are coming up are usually not families, usually not women and children. It's usually people, men who have committed crimes, and they're bringing people up as if they're their family in order to do these things. And he says, have you ever looked into a 9-year-old girl's eyes who has gone through to such a degree that you can look in her eyes and see that's like her soul is gone? He says that right there, he said, destroyed me to the point where it made me have to do something, have to act. And those are the things that I think about. And so we have, I believe, a lot of the right people in place to be able to get some of these things done and to carry out this mission to be effective. Um, the administration is not perfect, but I think that
I don't know
we're
about
in the
that,
right
to
place.
really be honest. Honestly, I don't believe it. I don't believe we are in the right place. I think as far as for the Epstein, Pam Bondi sat on, information that they knew about. They said over tens of thousands of children is what they're looking over.
Yeah.
We know the celebrities. We know a lot of people that are in charge, and they're just withholding information
Right.
from the American people. They have it. It's in front of them. They know who they are, especially if we are looking even down to churches, Catholic churches. They're just moved the priest around. So if this priest is doing things to children, guess what? It's not consequences. They just get moved to another church. So we're seeing now, just it's all in front of us, but it's all hidden.
Yeah.
And you would think, right? You would think with why we allow rules to be placed on is you're thinking safety. You're thinking that it's there to protect us. But in reality, it's there to shield them.
Yeah.
And how it's, rules for us, but not for them.
That's exactly how it is. It's such an injustice, because the legal system that was set up constitutionally to protect the American citizen and protect people who come to this country, who become citizens, has become such an injustice to what real justice is supposed to be, right? Like, it's a legal manipulation to mess up the court system and to bring in all these woke judges who are being paid, by the way, by organizations for traffickers, for people who are promoting illegal immigration because they want their Cloward pivot strategy, which is to exhaust and overrun our government and our resources and our agencies to the point where we're destroyed.
Yeah.
And then what's the next step? Come in and take over, topple it, and convert it into that one world system. That's what they want.
Yeah.
So, well, yeah, I agree. I don't think we're in a place where this administration is fully there, where it's the answer to everything. I think there's still some weaknesses and some issues and some flaws and some people that are probably not supposed to be there. But ultimately, I think we're in a pretty good position in terms of being able to get to where we want to get to. It's just a matter of the execution, and then you're up against time. We're already, what, 3.5 years? Like, it's gonna go by like that.
But then you look at something like this, and just since history, this has been going on. Once again, it's not just the trafficking itself. These kids are rituals. These kids, their blood's valuable. It's organs. It's everything. It's selling everything from a child. But this has been going on again for decades.
Yeah.
And it's just my only thing is that what had to bring me back to reality, and again, is just, God, this is something I don't understand. That maybe one day when we're standing face to face, I could, see the bigger picture and everything, and understand why, this was allowed.
Right.
It's going to be a lot of rehabilitation. Usually kids end up on drugs, kids end up, growing up committing suicide, or they end up continuing on the prostitution because that's just how they live.
Or
That's
yeah,
all we know.
or they become abusers themselves. Like it's
So
you know,
it's just, so we see all that, and then again, this is the biggest, it's a $1 trillion industry in itself. So, and you go back to the top, and it's the most elite men. It's not these criminals, it's not these gang members, it's top elite men. And it's just, again, it's something then that I had to come to realization with God, that just said, God, this is something that I can't sit there and continue to bring upon myself. I just have to trust you in it. I have to be in prayer. Parents out there, watch your kids.
Yeah.
Know who they're with. Know
Exactly.
who they're talking to on that cell phone. Be aware of your surroundings. Teach them. I know it's such a tough conversation to have with kids. Teach them the street smarts
Yeah.
of how manipulation can work, on how somebody can lower them into something. I think we need to have that conversation with our children.
We do. And here's the thing. I think to add to that, we've talked about this before, how like this system is broken on so many different levels. It starts off with the indoctrination, right? It starts off at a very early age, because what they're showing us, speaking to the powers that be, these people who are the real criminals, we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
These people who are the real criminals, they paint a picture for you of what a criminal is, so that your attention is drawn towards and focused towards what this idea is that they gave you over here. Well, the true criminals, who are likely them,
Yeah.
these corrupt judges, these people in power, these CEOs, etc., these world leaders who are part of these big corporations or big 501(c)(3)s,
You're
right?
never
These
even
big
gonna know their
nonprofits.
name either.
They are pushing the change. They are affecting and doing all these things to create what happens in society. The few rule the many.
Yeah.
And it all roots back to a couple of things that I always point people back to really dive in to understand where this comes from. It roots back to propaganda. And you think about propaganda, like, what do you mean? Where did that come from? You're talking about like the posters and stuff on the wall to, become a communist. No, I'm talking about where that all rooted from.
Yeah.
So propaganda rooted from Edward Bernays. Edward Bernays was this guy who came in and created what we know today as PR, public relations, and propaganda. He was able to sell anything. He was the guy who created the idea of breakfast as the most important meal of the day. He was the guy who was the nephew to who else? Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud, who created psychoanalysis. So you have these people who were able to create this mental framing, this coercion, this dark psychology and manipulation, these tactics that were able to be instituted upon all industries, starting from the food industry into politics, into military, into education, right? Through the Rockefellers and the General Board of Education. All of these things were framed and came and staggered down on top of each other to be the building blocks of the society that we have today. So when you see that, you're able to recognize that. And there's actually a good book called Propaganda by Edward Bernays. I recommend everybody get it, because it'll give you an idea and a view in to how these people think. And what I realize is all these building blocks came together to establish our society as we know it today. So kids are born into this, taught into this, indoctrinated into this, and so they don't believe there's any other way. And it literally is a matrix.
Wow.
And so since that's the case, now you don't see what you're supposed to break out of. You don't see what's wrong with the situation you're in until someone comes and wakes you up, and it has to be so drastic, and it has to be so extreme in a sense, that it gets you to wake up like a slap in the face, like a plunge into cold water that gets you shocked in your system, that makes you wake up and realize, holy crap,
Yeah.
this is wrong.
I think that everything starts making sense around you because, again, they flaunt it out in front of us.
Yeah.
Movies, music videos, signs, business signs, they put it out in front of us. So once you do awaken from it, you're just like, oh my God, oh my God, that movie, oh my God, this, oh my God, that. Like everything just starts making sense to you. And you're like, the whole time, they just been exposing exactly what they're doing and just laughing at us, just not getting it and, being asleep to it.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think that's, again, the one positive thing that I do take from this is people are starting to wake up. And I think what it is too is people now are starting to be very visual around them, that they see something that doesn't look right. And they're immediately pulling out their phone and they're like, hey, what's going on here? So I do love that. I do love that people are not, again, they're aware of it now.
Yeah.
And they're looking for it.
Big brothers
Anything
everywhere.
suspicious.
There's
Yes,
a
and that's the
video
good thing.
camera
Anything
everywhere.
that looks suspicious, don't be scared. If you see
It's
something
good and
that's not
bad.
wrong, it's good and bad, but always, again, don't go into something on your own. If you feel uncomfortable, get police force involved. Like there's something there, So it's just that. It's what I saw with the host Sean Ryan clip, and it got to me a little bit because it just brought me back to a little bit of memory of what Liz Crokin kind of took me down that rabbit hole with her. And it's just, it's again, it's a lot of evil out there, but then you see also the good.
Yeah.
Then you see what God is doing.
Exactly. And you also see when people get caught. Like, for instance, I want to bring a point up to you that and get your opinion on this, because I saw the kickoff of the Diddy trial. And one of the things that the New York Post came out with today is, as we've all seen, we're talking about Big Brother, we're talking about video surveillance can be good or bad. Well, it was good that video surveillance caught him with Cassie. Remember when he ran out in the hallway and grabbed her and drug her back into the room? And they said in that New York Post report today in court, it was reported during the testimony, I guess it was a witness testimony, that Diddy had held Cassie down and forced this male escort that he had, to in her mouth while she was choking. So this is just one aspect. Day one, right? Like, as this whole thing breaks out, like, what does that immediately put in your mind in terms of like this picture? Do you think that anything will really happen to this guy? Do you think that other people will be exposed from it, or are we going to get another Epstein-esque, situation where it's just buried and put away and flared up as something massive that we're going to get, but we never really get anything?
Yeah. First and foremost, like me as a woman, I think of Cassie.
Yeah.
And then you think about like girls in the situation and that stay in the situation. Because then you think about, well, why did you stay? Why'd you stay? You have mixed emotions. She shouldn't have stayed. But honestly, it goes back to just the way you were grown, the way you were raised. If you had a strong relationship with your parents, if you had a good, strong foundation of how to be treated as a woman. And sadly, we lack a relationship either with our father. Our father wasn't involved in our life. We don't have, a ground relationship with our parents. It's not the best example to us. That then we just start looking for love. And it goes back to me. That's what led me in my teen years to domestic violence of 3 years of abuse and everything. So when I look at something like that, it kind of triggers that, that teenager inside of me of what was done to me. And it was very similar. Like, these guys have literally no boundaries on what they do to you. And it's just, you stay there because you either are isolated, which they do a good job isolating you. You destroyed relationships with everybody around you. So all you have is them. And you just feel like there's no way out. You're trapped. So again, looking at that, of course, she was dragged back in. There was no way of her getting out. Either she was going to try to escape dying, or, obviously she's alive today to tell her story, and she's a mother. So good for her. And I'm pretty sure that protection for her own children now, that she's going to make sure to shield them, guide them, show them the proper way of love and what a man should not be doing to you. And that's just what I've done with my daughters. I have daughters, and now especially with a son, hey, this is how you're going to treat a woman, and you're never going to do this to a woman. So with Diddy, I think since no names have came to surface yet of bringing all the guys down, I think he's going to try to ride it out to see what he can do. Maybe he'll start singing at the end once the reality kicks in that he's not going to be coming out. Or it's just possibly another Epstein situation that he's just going to keep his mouth closed.
That's my opinion. Even little Rod showed up. He finally came out of hiding. He's been,
oh wow,
I guess in some type of witness protection or something.
Connections. This guy has connections. I don't blame him for being intimidated.
And people at his his level, like, so you think about that. Little Rod comes out of hiding, is coming in to testify. Obviously his written statement and his suit and what he brought to the forefront really just blew this whole thing up. Other women had brought stuff before, but once Little Rod came, for some reason, because he had so much information and evidence and backup between witnesses and corroborating stories, that's where this whole thing really took off with the federal indictment and the RICO and all that type of stuff. So, but I believe, like you said, people like Diddy are extremely powerful. They have pull. I'm just watching the
Especially if
news
there's
today.
tapes, especially if he has tapes of people
Especially
too.
if there's tapes. I'm watching the news today, for instance. One of Diddy's right-hand man, Jay-Z, just today, speaking of powerful people, it's being alleged that Jay-Z had a hit put out on Tory Lanez. He was stabbed, I believe, like 14 times.
Wow.
And they had to rush him to the hospital. They said that he is breathing on his own. He is actually talking and being very thankful.
Wow.
There was a story put up. Let's put that up real quick so we can kind of see what he said there. But just unreal, this situation, how these people possess such power all the way down into prison systems, into neighborhoods. Money talks.
Oh, yeah.
And
Well, if you remember, Little Rod had claimed, hey, P. Diddy has cops on payroll. Like, this is why there was a shooting, in one of the record location that they were at, and it got wiped off.
What did he tell?
He had shot somebody,
Yeah.
and the guy was about to die, but I had to, go in the bathroom and wrap him up, hold the blood, well, put his hand and compress the blood.
Yeah.
And it was just like that, though. They were able to go ahead and claim it was a drive-by and rewrite the whole script. And you look at everything and the once upon a time moment probably in your young years that you thought about, wow, that lifestyle, life, the house, the luxury, the finances, then I could, get my family out of this situation, and, I could buy my mom and dad a house or my house. Like, yeah, we're not going to live like this. And it looks so great from the outside. Being there at the events and kind of just seeing the room and how it's worked. Being at the Grammys and seeing there, and Beyonce's like 10 feet away from us, and here's all these celebrities, and you would think for that moment and that once upon a time inside of me was like, when you did music, it was like, I can't wait till we make it there. I can't wait to we get opportunities. I'm thinking from a positive and innocent mind that this is just gonna be great for us. Being there and having, and I think it was a God moment for me, having that moment of being there in that whole room with them. The only thing I wanted to do, and I don't know if you remember, we weren't even there for an hour.
Yeah.
And I turned over to you and I was like, I want to go home with my babies.
Yep.
And we ended the night, not at an after party, not anywhere else.
We left actually a
We
little
left
early.
and made pasta at our Airbnb.
Yep.
And we were at the table with friends and our kids. And that's where I wanted to be at. So I was happy to have that moment because it's nothing.
And I think that's a good point to bring up to people, because it's like, you have this vision. You have, like you said, you have this mindset like, oh, I can't wait to reach the top of that ladder. And I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to work hard. I want to meet this person. These people want to, endorse me to be in this academy and that academy. I'm in this, I'm that. I'm meeting this person, that person. And you start climbing the ladder. What happens is your vantage point changes because you start understanding the intricacies and the details inside those things, who these people really are, what they're involved in, what types of weird fetishes and weird spiritual things that they're involved in. It's like religions, right?
Yeah.
Who to the outsiders show themselves to be one thing, but on the inside and the internals, they're involved in some crazy stuff. So by the time you get to the top of that ladder and you're in those places and you know those people and you're in those circles, you're no longer looking at it as if like, I want to get this now. Now you're like, oh, hold on a second. This is, if it's going to mess me up, this might take my soul. This might cause me to do some things that I don't really want to do. And you know what? Deep down inside, my spirit says no. And it's like the scripture says, what is it profit a man to gain the whole world, but lose your soul in the process? And it's that mindset, once you get to those top levels, that you really see what it's really all about. And you say,
I think it's also maturity.
Yeah.
And I was so happy to finally have these opportunities.
Right.
The older we are now, I think in our young 20s, we probably would have been foolish and not would have read, the fine print.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And then now just being older and being able to handle things, from a mature mindset now. God has a timing for everything.